Are you enjoying the World Cup? I admit that I've only watched just a little bit. Only a little bit. You know, I didn't grow up with soccer. In fact, the only memory that I have of playing soccer was from kindergarten. I was supposed to get married, and, well, I left my kindergarten girlfriend at the altar to play soccer. No doubt she's been scarred for life. While I haven't enjoyed too many of the games, I have enjoyed reading or hearing accounts of international visitors. This might come as a surprise to you, but Kansas City is not a popular international tourist destination for some reason. What's been fascinating is to hear these visitors from Europe and other places speak about our way of life, especially about the abundance that we kind of take for granted, the size of our homes. I think I read somewhere that the average size of the American home is like 1,000 square feet larger than the average home in the Netherlands. So from the size of the home to the size of the stores, like Costco, you can get everything there. Your groceries, and you can buy a car. It's amazing. Or the size of the portions of food at restaurants. They're amazed. And that the restaurants will even give you a box to take home, leftovers. They're amazed. And I think it's really good for us to hear because we tend to take that for granted. And I would say an appreciation of the abundance gets lost, especially as grievances are stoked by leaders, or the rich, they have everything, you don't have much, but they have so much. Or maybe foreigners who are going to take your way of life. Now, interestingly, this is precisely one of the ways noted by Aristotle that lead democracies to fail. In his lectures on politics from the 4th century BC, I mean, that's about 300 years before Jesus walked the earth, Aristotle reviewed numerous regimes and identified why they failed. He found that most often the beginning of the end came through factions that developed from political figures being at odds with one another, but not because of political reasons, or not firstly at least, but because of personal reasons, grievances. One example he cited was of two office holders from ancient Syracuse whose relationship fell apart because of jealousy and an affair. The citizens then took sides and were divided into two factions. So a division begins. And then Aristotle said that in democracies, the most potent cause of revolution is the unprincipled character of popular leaders. What do? Well, they stir up antagonism and divisions, especially by pointing out how much more money and property a certain group has, the rich, or maybe denounce threats to what people do have from foreigners, or from the Democrats, or the Republicans who want to take your way of life. He also said that a pitfall of democracies is that those who are eager to secure elections lead the people on and on until the people make them sovereign even over the laws to get their way. They want something, and how are they going to get it? Well, even if you have to break a few yokes, if you have to break the laws, then if that'll happen, we'll give him the power, which means they no longer live under the rule of law, but under a king or a tyrant, or the tyranny of their passions, or the tyranny of the majority in power. Aristotle then identifies ways to preserve a democracy and its constitution. Now, this is a little bit lengthy, but listen to the wisdom of this ancient philosopher. He wrote, "Of all the safeguards that we hear spoken of as helping to maintain constitutional stability, the most important, but today, all the way back in the 300s BC, today universally neglected, is education for the way of living that belongs to the Constitution." All the way back then. It reminded me of a survey that just came out. Maybe you saw it. That almost 50% of Americans in general and 2/3 of Gen Z don't know that America's 250th anniversary commemorates the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. Can you even believe that? It's useless, he says, to have the most beneficial laws fully agreed upon by all who are members of the Constitution if they are not going to be trained and have their habits formed in the spirit of that Constitution. You can have the best laws, you can have the best Constitution, but if you're not actually formed in it, it's of no avail to you. For as one individual may be morally incapable, so may a whole state. Now, to have been educated for the Constitution doesn't mean simply doing the things that democratically minded people enjoy doing, but doing what will enable them to live as Democrats with a small d. You might see people living in a democracy doing things, but you don't just imitate them because they're small d Democrats, because that might not actually serve the Constitution or their country. And then he says this. He said, however, what has come to prevail in democracies is the very reverse of beneficial. The reason for this lies in the failure properly to define liberty. Liberty is seen in terms of doing what one wants. Don't impose restrictions on me and limit my freedom. So in such a democracy, each lives as he likes and for his fancy of the moment. And then he just simply states, this is bad. It ought not to be regarded as slavery to live according to the Constitution, but rather self-preservation. Isn't that good? Just because I can do anything I want doesn't mean that I won't end up destroying myself or others in the process. Is that really freedom? It seems then that true freedom is associated with living according to the truth. Or as Jesus said, the truth will set you free. This is the easy yoke and light burden of which Jesus spoke. There are many ways to live this life, all of which come with a yoke and a burden. There are many forms of government, even self-government, maybe especially even the government of unrestrained choices for oneself. But is that truly freedom? It carries a burden and a yoke. I'm mindful of the man I saw this week in the hospital who is there precisely because of decades of drug addiction and alcohol abuse. There's the freedom of unrestricted choice. My yoke is easy, my burden light. It's better to give than to receive. It's necessary to forgive in order to be forgiven, to forgive even yourself. My yoke is easy and my burden light, Jesus says, because what I present to you is the truth of who you are. Friends, the beauty of democracy, as well as its peril, is that each person can make a contribution, a meaningful contribution, for good or for ill. This means that you and I are engaged in the most patriotic and beneficial act possible, setting the highest good in front of us week after week, Sunday after Sunday, setting the good one in front of us who gradually transforms us according to his goodness and sends us back into society to transform it and to live out our liberty rightly, properly, and well. Not to do whatever we want, but to pursue that which is right and good and true. May God bless America on this, her 250th birthday, with more and more little ones who understand this truth, for whom even Jesus gave thanks.